Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Heroic Dark by Willpower Games. All right, so first and foremost, this game is free. You can get it right now on DriveThruRPG for nothing. It is called the Early Edition, and I believe they're building this right now. But I've read the game. It's 135 pages long, and it's fully functional. You can absolutely play this. It's really missing nothing. Everything is here. There are there's setting sheets, character sheets. The rules are in place. The art is in place. It increased. So we're going to talk about this game, but I want to talk about this real quick. There is something incredible happening in tabletop role-playing games overall, especially on the I would say the indie side. So all the non-major publishers, there are so many amazing games out right now that there is just a steady flow of amazing quick starts that are 30, 40 pages long, and then early editions of games that are released for absolutely nothing. And we already saw it. A perfect example of this was the Pathfinder 2 play set. When the Pathfinder 2 play test came out, it had incredible writing, it had incredible symbols, it had incredible art. It was fully playable, right? So there are so many great games out right now, and there just continues to be a steady flow of absolutely 100% legal ways to get amazing, fully playable games, right? And so the vast majority of tables today can drop in and have literally dozens of amazing games that they can play for nothing, right? And I don't think we've really even explored this topic much in tabletop role-playing games overall, just how many amazing free games there are. And by the way, Heroic Dark fully fits into that format. So let's talk about Heroic Dark. What is Heroic Dark? It's really strong. I would rate this game 4 out of 5 stars. I really love the read-through. And looking at the rule system and the way this game is structured, it really invites a lot of amazing play, and I was incredibly impressed with this game. All right, so let's talk about what is Heroic Dark, what makes it unique, and why should you, you shouldn't even consider getting it. It costs nothing. You should get it immediately. It's right there on DriveThruRPG. Add it to your collection now, right? And then you can play it later if you want. But if you wait, sometimes these things go away, right? So I would grab it now. So what is Heroic Dark? Let's talk about it. All right, Heroic Dark is essentially a modern GURPS. All right, GURPS is an old game. It's a generic universal role-playing system. Well, Heroic Dark, in many ways, is a modern GURPS, right? Where it actually uses modern rule sets and embraces a lot of really cool indie game mechanics, and has a very modern approach to tabletop role-playing games, but has that generic universal role-playing system framework where you could use Heroic Dark to run almost any story you want, right? So basically, now it is called Heroic Dark, and basically that's for a reason, right? Heroic Dark is heroes versus the darkness, right? So the game gives you a platform to play heroes versus darkness, right? So let's give some examples of this, right? Lord of the Rings is a perfect example of this. The heroes are the dwarves, the wizard, the hobbit against the darkness of Mordor, right? Let's look at Star Wars. You have the rebels, the Jedis, the pilots, the princesses against the evil empire, right? NYPD Blue, right? You have the police officers and the lawyers and the people in the system fighting to keep New York safe and protect the people of New York from the elements that would harm New York, right? Criminals, right? So it's heroes versus darkness, right? This tale, this overarching, here's our heroes, there are player characters. Darkness is in one form. This game does something really unique. They're let's approach these narratives, let's approach these stories from the perspective of heroes versus darkness, right? And so the game doesn't give you a set place to play in, right? It's saying hey, you as the game master will work, you and the players will work together. You will craft the world you want, right? And then here's the rules platform to allow you to play in any way that you wish to do that, right? So that's the structure of Heroes versus the Dark. It's build your own setting and then play with our rule set, right? And they actually give you a character. The setting has its own sheet. It's called the setting sheet, and it functions exactly the way a character sheet, like the way you're used to a character sheet. The setting sheet functions as for the setting, right? Really, really unique, right? Let's talk about the publishers. This is done by Willpower Games. It is an international tabletop role-playing game that appears to very clearly have been translated into English, right? So it does not appear to me to be an American product. It appears to be an international publisher making their game accessible to an American audience, right? So I'm betting that there's, exists in its native language somewhere else. That's my concept of it, and I'm only saying that just from the names and from my overall. I can kind of, at this point, I can smell an international production, right, on a tabletop role-playing game. I only say that because I did not get this sense at all with Heroes in the Dark, but I'm a huge fan of Modiphius, but it is very clear sometimes when I read a Modiphius game that their worldview and their view of politics, culture, and society is dramatically different than an American view, right? So if you're an American, this game, I think, really does a fantastic job of embracing American politics, culture, and society. I don't think you're going to find anything too shocking here. That's one of the things is when I read Modiphius games, there'll be things that they just look at completely different than Americans, and sometimes I'll be like, whoa, that's really odd, so, but here, to my knowledge, this is an international publisher making their game available to Americans in English, right? And Willpower Games, to my knowledge, does not appear to have many other significantly larger games. So this is definitely one of their first introductions of a major new rule setting. But it is excellent. It is really good. So let's talk about the big stuff, right? So the rules. The rules are let me give you the basic mechanic, right? So basically, in order to do a task, your character will roll 5d6, right? Your character has ranks, which are the closest thing you would have to a skill. They're really like abilities or edges, right? But when you have a rank, the way you do a difficulty check in this game is you roll 5d6. Let's say that you're a fighter and you're going to try to chop down a goblin, okay? Your fighter would have 2 ranks in fighting, right? So the way you do it is you take 5d6, right? And you need a hit is a 6, right? And so the difficulty of your task is determined by how many hits you need. So for a very easy target, you only need 1 6. For a very difficult target, you might need as many as 5 6s, right? So here's how it would go. So your fighter goes to chop down a goblin, right? And you would roll your 5d6s, and let's say you got a 3, a 1, 2, and a 6 and a 6, right? So 2 6s. Since you have rank 2 in fighting and you are doing fighting, you now get to pick up 2 of the dice that missed and re-roll them. So let's say you get a 1 and a 6. Now you have 3 6s, 3 hits, which would be, on the range of 1 to 5, right? So 1 is the easiest thing you can possibly do. 5 is the most difficult, and that's how the mechanic is. And then the rest of the game is structured around that difficulty check, right? And it's really quite innovative. I like it. It's very smooth. It's very elegant. It's very adaptable. There's a lot you can do with it. And it's solid. It seems like a really good. So the rules are tight. I like it, right? I like the rules, right? Let's talk about the world. The world is very, very generic and open, right? So what is this game doing that other games haven't? So one, this game will play much faster and much smoother and have much less granularity than a GURPS game would. Also, GURPS, in my opinion, is very dated. Very few modern gamers play GURPS. I think pretty much that's become a grognard game. That's just my take. If you disagree, hit me up on the comments below. And so, but this is really a GURPS for a modern audience, and it's extremely well executed, right? So the world is generic, and you can play anything with this. It's really exciting what you can play, right? So here's the things you could do. You can immediately drop in, and the game gives you a framework where you are going to build a setting together. The players are going to build a setting together, and the game master is going to build with them this setting, right? Now, what you could do is you could literally just drop in and say, okay, we're going to play Lord of the Rings, and just fill out the setting sheet as though it's Lord of the Rings, right? Very easy, very direct. The framework's set, right? There's really no need for a change, right? And then you could play Heroes of the Dark. You could play a Lord of the Rings setting with the Heroes of the Dark rule set, right? That's one way you could do it. Another way you could do it is build a setting from scratch, right? So you could say, okay, we're going to do a fantasy world, and in this fantasy world, all the denizens of the fantasy world are humanoid animals, right? And in addition to that, they all live in the surface of the fantasy world is filled with monsters, and so everybody lives in floating cities, and they use dirigibles to go down to the surface, and they bring back magic items and riches to the floating cities, right? And so you could build that from the ground up, and you play your heroes versus your darkness. The darkness is this destroyed land below, and also the need to keep the floating cities robust and safe and have good society, right? And so that's the goals of the heroes, and the darkness are all the creatures that live below, right? And the fact that, also, what about, do these societies want to return to the surface? Do they want to reclaim the surface? They'd have to overcome that darkness, right? And so it's from that perspective, the world is really quite intriguing. The layout, very, very professional layout in this. It has one palette. It has a palette. It's white, right, with green, right? And the greens go from a light green, and it's really like a money green, right? But it goes from a light green, shadings of greens, hash check of greens, to like deep, emerald greens that are saturating the page, right? And then each chapter has a big one-page piece of art that is very generic, that is not setting specific. There might be kind of a fantasy character on one chapter, and then the next chapter might have, a space pirate, right? So the art, there's enough of the art there to keep you engaged. The art is very, it doesn't look like it was expensive, or it looks like it's good art, right? But it's all one color, right? And it's very solid, and it's very exciting, and it's just enough to say this looks like a professional product, right? Even though it's free, right? Incredible, right? So that's such a huge topic. Like, I swear, you could just take the games that are being offered for free, never pay a dime, and you'd have so much awesome things to play at your table. We live in a very strange time where our industries are really, really challenged. And in the tabletop role-playing game industry, the idea of making money there, when there are free games available every week, completely 100% finished or 100% playable, right? So this is amazing. The Willpower Games people, they don't consider this a finished game. I looked at this thing. This is 100% playable. It's completely finished. You can run with it. You could have a blast with this for 6 months, right? It's fantastic, right? So we talked about the world. We talked about the rules. We talked about the layout, right? So the layout, right? Oh, I'm sorry. We talked about the art, right? And the art. We were talking about the layout and the art. The layout also is incredibly well done. There's really nice professional fonts. It's easy to read. Bullet points. It's not overly long. It's not overly complicated. It's very easy to understand. And also the physical layout of the page. The text is not scrunched. It's not columnar. It's really quite beautiful, right? So you have the world, you have the rules, you have the layout, you have the art, and the editing. The editing's a little off. There's a few misspelled words here and there. I would have fixed a little bit of the tone, things like that, but nothing major. Heroes of the Dark is available now. It is a 4 out of 5 star game. You can drop this in on your table. You can have a blast. You can play any existing setting that has heroes versus kind of an overarching darkness or an overarching enemy, right? So you can use this to play in any movie world, any television world, any novel world you wish, and you could use it to craft your own world. It is really, really cool. So those are all power aspects of the game that I just said. What are some of the sour aspects of the game? They use Session Zero. I hate Session Zero with a passion. I'm the internet's greatest foe of Session Zero. This game uses Session Zero. I detest Session Zero for a long list of reasons, which you can find right here on this channel. Just look up, Scott Garibay's Session Zero. I'll see if I can get the link in below. It does use that. I really wish it didn't. I've said my piece on that part. Even with that in there, this game is again, one of the reasons why I have so much goodwill for this game is it's free. It's incredible, right? So get Heroes of the Dark right away. Drop this on your table. Have a blast. Thank you very much to Willpower Games for supplying this awesome game for the world, and I wish them well as they continue forward to build out, to kind of polish the game. But I will say, I think Willpower Games and many of the publishers today, I think, are really going to struggle, right? Because a lot of times, I think people are going to engage with that first thing that you dropped, have campaigns with it, and then the idea that they're going to return to it and that there's not going to be another amazing, awesome free game that comes out before they're done is kind of ridiculous. There is going to be another game, and many groups will move on. So that's my review of Heroes in Heroic Dark. Right? Definitely download it. Give it a shot. If you've tried Heroes in the Dark, let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious what you think. If you download it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.